Hey everyone, today we are going to talk about data validation. Data validation is a function used to control and validate data input to the spreadsheets. For example, we can select from a drop-down list, and we can also use it to validate input dates. And also we will talk about how to create a dependent list using the data validation. So let's get started. Now we have a table. We have group, number of people of each group, and a 10, yes, no, or maybe. Before we put on data validation, we can type whatever we want, like OK to check. So it's not standardized. So we can use data validation, we can data validation, and then we add a rule. Now select the range, and then for the criteria, we choose drop down. We can also select the color of the options, like so, and now we press done. Now we have a drop-down list of yes, no, and maybe, but no other options. So if we try to type something different like OK, and it says it only allows you to input maybe, no, or yes. And it can also be used to validate data based on numbers. For example, here, number of people, we choose data validation. And for the criteria, we choose greater than. For example, we want to ensure the input always greater than 0. Then we put greater than 0. And in the advanced option, if the data is invalid, we can choose reject the input. And it pops up an error that the input is not valid. And the data validation can also use to validate dates. So let's type reply date for each group's reply deadline. And we use data validation. And now for the criteria, we choose date is on or before. And we can input an exact date. Let's say 2024, the last day of October. And if the data is invalid, we reject the input and let's see what happens. Now if we choose a date before the end of October, it's valid. And if we input the date after the end of October, it will show invalid. And it does not allow you to input. So let's choose some dates and see. And again, choose November. It's invalid. So this is the data validation to control the input based on text, based on number, and based on days. And we can also use data validation to create a drop-down list based on a range. For example, we have all the group names here. And in the table, we want to create a drop-down list based on this list. So we add a new rule and we select the range. And now for the criteria, we choose drop-down from a range. And now we select the range. The range will be the list, we put it here. And then we press OK. And display style, I always love arrow. And now we can use the drop-down list based on the range. We can always make it extendable by putting a wider range. Like this. So if we have a new item added on a list, the drop-down list will be updated automatically. Let's try one more. And here we go. And now let's talk about how to build a dependent list using data validation. So for example, we have a list here. We have, for example, electronics, clothing, kitchen, and in each category, we have a few products. So let's type category here. And then we have the product. And now for the drop-down list one, it will be the category. So let's select this range and use data validation, add rule, and then the range will be this one. And for the criteria, we choose drop down from a range. And for the range, we choose the category. It will eliminate all the duplicates automatically. So let's press OK. And now we have the first drop-down list based on the category. And for the second drop-down list, for example, for clothing, it will only show the products in clothing. So let's build a helper column. So in here we type list, and in here we'll use the filter formula. Let's filter the product, based on the category equals to our selection, like this. And now we have filtered out the products in the clothing category. But in order to make this work, we need to make the filter list to be horizontal, so every line will be filtered based on our selection. So we can use the transpose formula before the filter. Let's type transpose, and now the list is displayed horizontally. So let's copy and paste the formula. So here we go. We have different filtered lists based on our selections. So to create a second drop-down list, and this time the criteria we choose drop-down from a range, and the range will be each individual drop-down list. And to make it extendable, we can just delete the column of the end range, like this. Now we press OK. So now we have the dependent drop-down list of product based on our selection in the category. And to eliminate the NA, we can use the if-error function at the beginning. So let's copy and paste. Now we have a clean list for our data. And we can also hide the helper column, like this. So this is the data validation function and how to build the dependent list.